All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's session. In this session, we're going to be discussing product backlog. Yeah. Product backlog is mainly we use it as a BA techniques used in technical requirements, but in agile environment, we call it product backlog. Or if you are working within the waterfall environment, it's called technical requirement. So when you hear technical requirements or product backlog, they are the same thing, but different environment. So let's get started. So have any of us, have we heard about product backlog before? One who have heard about product backlog before this class, or have used or have produced product backlog or managed product backlog? If you are a business analyst working in agile environment, or if you are a product owner or a scrum master, you must have heard or worked with product backlog. But product backlog is an ordered list of work items, tasks, or requirements that the development team or called developers need to complete to deliver a product. It serves as the single source of truth for the project requirement in agile and scrum methodologies. Like I said, this is used in agile environment. If we are using it in waterfall environment, it's called technical requirement. And this is a collection of work items that need to be done within a project in order to produce a product or deliver a product. So I've heard so many questions. Some people are asking me what is product, or some people start misunderstanding product. Product is not only when you have a set of cosmetics or a shoe or a clothes. They are not the only product. In IT environment, softwares are called products. So any software is a product. That is in IT. If you go to automobile, they have their product as well. All these cars, they are products. So when we are talking about product backlog in this, we are talking about some of these softwares we are using. Example of a product is this particular software you are looking at, this particular, you see here, this is Google Docs. This is a product of Google, this Google Doc. We call it products. So if you go to Google, you see Google have so many products. Another product here, you see, this is calendar. This is a product, another product of Google. If you come here again, this is another product. This is map, Google Map. This is another product. So these are all the products we can see. Okay. The one you guys are very conversant or very is Project Labor is a product. FreeCamp is a product. WhatsApp is a product. Facebook is a product. So that is what we mean by product. So we cannot discuss what product backlog without first trying to understand what product is. So what is the backlog? Backlog is list of requirements. All the requirements put together to build that product is called backlog. So before we start any work as a business analyst or project managers, we need a list of work items. These are what the project managers need to manage, this work item. And this work items comes in what we call product backlog. So you need to understand this work items very well. I'm sorry for those who say that they are not interested in business analysis. How are you going to understand the work items we are going to manage if you are not interested in business analysis? Is, as a matter of fact, that's why I weave this course together. So because it's very difficult. Only if you want to go as a project manager, you want to only be managing events, you know, event planner, wedding planning, or this. But even at that, you still have to meet some business analysis. No matter how you want to escape it, you cannot run away. So you must understand a product and understand how to manage all the requirements. All these requirements is what we call product backlog. So having said this foundation, the purpose of a product backlog is to prioritize tasks based on value and urgency. So the product backlog helps us to prioritize our work, making sure that we deliver the most important requirement first. So by the time, most of the time, it is the duty of product owner. Product owner manages product backlog. He owns all the backlog, all the requirements. He decides what happened to all the requirements. He decides what features that should be coming out in every product. Every software has a product owner. In Facebook, the product owner is Mark. So he manages everything, decides what comes in, every requirement, every feature, no matter how. So what they do is they keep on capturing requirements from stakeholders, customers, users, trying to understand what they need. For instance, now we are trying to implement an ERP. Let's say maybe at the end of the day, after our analysis, we decide to implement a Dynamics 365 ERP. That Dynamics 365 ERP is a product. So the product owner and the BA will decide. If you see Dynamics 365 ERP is a very robust application. It comes with so many modules. You've got CRM modules, you've got operations modules, so many of them. So the product owner if we don't have a product owner, the BA will serve as a product. Even if there is a product owner, the product owner works with the business analyst. They are the people that decide the modules or the features or the user stories that need to be developed in the order of urgency, in the order of value based on what the stakeholders say that they want. In some softwares, there are so many hidden features you cannot see, more especially if you are working within an organization. There are so many of them you are not going to see, not because it doesn't exist, but because the stakeholders do not want it. So we need someone who have a good understanding of every product while trying to implement a solution or a product. So a product, we can equally call it a solution, software. So another purpose is transparency. Ensures all team members and stakeholders have visibility into product requirements. In as much as the product owner is the only person that have the authority to decide what goes in and what comes out of the product, every other team members and requirements have access to see what they have in stock. So that transparency, and then flexibility, allow for dynamic updates based on evolving business need. In product backlog, an item might be on top tomorrow, and next tomorrow the item will be at the bottom, meaning that it's no longer valued so high. Or it can equally be removed. When an item becomes obsolete, we remove it from the product backlog. So that is what I mean by transparency. And then progress tracking, help team measure progress by walking through the backlog items. So we track the progress, more especially we use softwares like Jira for tracking. So after creating a product backlog, we move them to some of these softwares where we are going to be managing those products backlog in order to implement the product or the solution we plan to implement. Key features of a product backlog. Items. We have items. At times we call it product backlog items. We call it product. If you type in your browser, if you just type PBI, it will show you that it's a short form of product backlog items. So items contains user stories, features, bug, technical tasks or enhancements. Ordering. Items are prioritized based on business value, customer need, and dependencies. Estimate. Items are often included with time or effort. So when we mean estimate, we always have what we call priority, not priority. This number, it escaped my mind. When I remember it, I'll let you know, but is story point. We call it story point. Story points decide how complex every item or every user story is. So we estimate every item in terms of story points to determine how much work we have. So the product item with high story points means that it's very complex, or it might take longer time to work on. Shorter story points is where we have less work. So before we start any work, we must estimate all the work items. So this is what the Scrum Master, most of the time the Scrum Master does this. Scrum Master has to estimate all the product items to determine how complex they are. So if the Scrum Master do not understand requirement very well, it's going to be very difficult to estimate them. But Scrum Master does this estimation with developers that are going to work on them. So another key feature of product backlog is dynamic in nature. The product backlog is continuously refined and updated. So we continue refining it. We look at the trend, the market trend. That is what the product owner is always looking at. When you capture a product items to be implemented and you find out that the market does not need it anymore, you let it go. So that's what I mean by dynamic. So what are the elements, key elements? If we're trying to build a product backlog, what are the elements? If you want to build a very robust and sustainable product backlog, this is how it looks like. All my product backlog must have this element. Some people do not have it this way. So it is not a must that every product backlog must have this kind of element. Some people will not include this Jira ID or status, but this is the way I do my own. We have Epic, high-level grouping of related functionalities. Then we have features, specific areas of functionalities under the Epic, user stories, describe the work from the user's perspective, acceptance criteria defines the condition for a story to be considered complete. Issue type, categorize the product backlog in terms of feature, tags, defect, or enhancement. And then story point, which I've said, estimated time to complete the work item. We have priority. We must always prioritize our work, indicate the importance, high, medium, or low. And Jira ID, the software where we do this work. So we must only if we have moved them to Jira. If we move them to Jira and we are using Jira, as a matter of fact, Jira is not the only software we use to do this. We have Azure DevOps, and we can equally use them to do to plan Scrum or sprints. So, and we have status to show the progress of the work item, whether it's on to do, in progress, or done. So these are elements. You've captured them in this element, then you find out your product backlog will remain valid, or you might not need much to update. So it's very high, good structure. Having all the user stories, you see the origin of all the user stories. This is the main thing we are talking about, user stories. But why we have features is that most of the time, user stories do not just come on its own. User stories come from Epic. When the Epic is a chunk of work, we are going to have a look on them briefly, understand how they work. Here we have Epic, feature, user stories, and acceptance criteria. And Epic is a large body of work that can be broken down into smaller tasks or stories. Epic are typically too big to be completed in one single iteration or sprint. and need to be decomposed into smaller and more manageable pieces. Epic provide a high-level view of what needs to be done and serve as a placeholder for future work planning and analysis. Okay, we'll talk this epic. Let's do it practical. It will help a lot of us to understand how this epic works. In these products we are using now, this product we are using is called Google Doc. It's a product. We have a lot of epics in this Google Doc. We have a lot of features in this Google Doc, and we have a lot of user stories. Okay, epic is a large body of work that needs to be broken down. Okay, if we want to, you see this file here is a large chunk of work. It needs to be broken down. It needs to be broken down into smaller, manageable pieces for us to be able to get this job done. If you are not on mute, put yourself on mute because it's reflecting here. So if you want to see how this epic looks like, this file, you click on the file, you see these are all the work, a lot of work that is within this. So you see under file, there is so much other features that need to be, so it's broken down here because, but if you are looking at it just on its own, you see it might look so simple, but it's very complex. It's not simple. If you click on it, you see new, you see open. All these things are used features, these small features. And you see this new here is broken down into, is a feature. It cannot be consumed at once or it cannot be produced at once. So it's broken down into, you see document and from template. And if you come down, you see this, they are broken down. You see this, they are broken down into 3. Okay, you see this download under, this is a feature in this, is broken down into so many, you see, under so many, these are called user stories. So that is how it works. So I want you to see that epic is a category in a very simple term. Feature is a subcategory, and the user story is a subcategory. So that is how we keep breaking them down. Like this one is the parents, epic is the parents, and feature is the child. And then user story is the grandchild of this epic. I hope this will make give us better understanding. Okay, let's look at the feature. Features are a chunk of functionalities that are valuable, that provide valuable outcome to the end users. They are generally large in scope. I want you to understand they are larger in scope than the user story. So they have one step ahead of user story. They are larger, so they can be broken down into smaller user story in order to consume this. That is what feature means. So the user story should be the smallest in this work items. So all these we are talking about are work items where we want to commit. We have to break them down so that it can be manageable. And finally, we have user stories. So it is at this point that it can be consumed. The developers start consuming them from this stage. When it's broken down to this level, that is when the coding starts. So user stories are short, simple description of a feature told from the perspective of the end user or customer. they follow specific formats. As a type of user, I want to an action so that I can get this benefit. So that is the way we write user story. We must talk about the user. That is where this name comes, user story. We want to understand the value a user wants to get from using this particular feature or this tiny feature in this software or product. So we want to describe every small code we produce. We must decide, or we must state the value is bringing to the software. We don't just code anything. We don't add anything to the software or to the. We must decide, and every of them must be reviewed very well by the stakeholders before they can be added. So, example here, as a user, I want to be able to log into the system with my email and password so I can access my personalized dashboard, just like all of you are logging into your course portal. So before, if you go to our course portal, you see the login page. Before you can log in page, you need to put your password and username. That entry point is a user story. So that is how it works. Then what is acceptance criteria? Acceptance criteria are specific conditions or requirements that a user story or feature must meet to be considered complete or satisfactory. So before we can say we have what we call definition of done. Definition of done is when we say that we finished this user story, or we have created this little tiny software and it's working. We must validate them. Every user story must be validated, making sure that it does what we say that it's doing. So, and that is the point of testing. That is where the point of testing comes in. That's what we have quality assurance personnel or quality control or tester or whoever is doing the testing. That is where the testing comes in, to validate every user story we committed in that project. So once we do the testing using acceptance criteria and every user story passes the test, then that's when we say we've completed the job. But when any user story failed the test, then that user story needs to be revisited in order to correct the defect or the bug. So that is acceptance criteria. Looking at this user story here, let's look at its acceptance criteria. Given that I am on the login page of our course portal, when I enter a valid email and password, then I should be redirected to a personalized dashboard where I access my courses. So that is what the acceptance criteria. As long as you have provided a valid email and password, you should have access into your course portal. So, but when you put your email and you don't have access, some of you will start calling me Mr. Cha, so I can't have access to my course portal, you know. So that is what's happening so many of the time. But in those cases, it might not just be because, it might just be because of network, you know. But when everything is equal, good network, everything, and you put in your username, your email address and password, you should have entry. If you don't have entry, then that is, you have a bug, you know. So that is it. So that is how user stories and acceptance criteria work, and EPI and features. So these are all the things we need to understand within the product backlog. All these are what make we combine together to build the product backlog. So looking further at the characteristics in order to list everything or make sure we capture everything, it must be a list of requirements. List of requirements. It must be prioritized, have prioritization. Prioritization is in order of value of importance we've already spoken about. Is dynamic and involved, meaning that it changes over time. Once it gets obsolete, it can be updated or it can be removed. And it must have user stories or tags. That's work items. We must have estimation. We'll talk about estimation. Estimation is when we're trying to create story point. It must continuously refine. We have user story refining session. At least when the project starts, the team need to make out time to be refining their product backlog at least once every week. And transparency means that everybody in that team must have access to that user stories. I've worked in a team, some of these inexperienced business analysts, you know, the work item doesn't belong to you. I happen to be the project manager, and then some of the team members reported to me, you know, because I always have access. So some of the product backlog, the BAs limit the access from other team members, saying that it's a very sensitive document. What do you mean by sensitive document? These are team members. They are part of the project. You cannot limit, you can't deny them access to that. Everybody must have an access. As a matter of fact, it's a document that everybody should have a copy of. You know? So, transparency, sprint planning is within the Scrum. During the Scrum planning, a subset of these product backlog items is selected to be part of the upcoming project or upcoming sprint. So we select work from the product backlog to plan for our current sprint. So let's quickly look at this step by step. If you want to create a product backlog, the first thing, like I said, most of the time is the product owner that does this, but BAs does that as well. So identify the product goal, define the overall objective or outcome the project should achieve, gather requirements, collaborate with stakeholders to collect features, user need and technical requirement. Step 3, break them down, divide high level into smaller actionable backlog. Number 4, prioritize item, rank items by business value, urgency and dependencies. Number 5, estimate effort, assign effort level, story point, hours to each of the items, and continuously refine. It's a very simple process if you understand it. So just follow the sequence and you get a very beautiful user stories. And this is an example of, product backlog. This is an example of a very good product backlog. This is product backlog for Dynamics 365 Business Central, ERP. Or let's see, ERP Business Central. So this is it. And you see, like I said, that all my work, some people, you see them, their users, their product backlog will just be user story and acceptance criteria and story points and prioritization, just like 4 columns. They will not even add the epic. They will not even add features. It becomes so scanty. You start struggling to know the origin of the user story. So, but it's always good when somebody tell you, you ask somebody what is your name, you say, my name is John. You say, John who? John who? So a user story without epic or feature is just like somebody say, Charles, my name is Charles. Charles, people, they have millions of charts. You need to personalize their own, you need to customize their own charts. And when you see Charles Ugu, oh, Charles Ugu, you know, some people might be so many Charles Ugu. So if there's any other way you can personalize to make sure, to make people, that is refining meat. Refinement is here. That's what I'm saying here in my name. You help people to understand me. But once you say Charles, it's a general state, people might not really understand. So for those who are just come up with a product user stories and acceptance criteria and say that is a product backlog. Yes, I'm not saying it's not a product backlog, but it's not complete. People might not understand. It might not give people good meaning. Okay. Looking at this user story here, you see that the user story is coming from finance, is from this model, finance optimization, from finance, and from finance, we break them down into here, chart of account. And you see finance here, there are so many features under finance optimization. And that is how you start breaking them down. So you come to user story and then you start defining it. You see the user story here says, as a finance manager, I want to configure the chart of accounts to align with company's policy. So most of the chart of account, these are white label softwares. So when you get them, you have to personalize it the way you want it to work. You have different policies. Here is aligning with organizational or company policy. So the acceptance criteria here says chart of account fully configured, verified, and ready for transaction. Once you configure everything, then you should be able to perform transaction within the chart of account. And issue type here is said feature. So here you can equally say, yeah, feature or user story or tags or bug. So but I'm going to take us to a very robust user product backlog where we are going to, this is just for illustration. And here is story point. The story point here shows that is 8. So it's a bit complex work looking at the story point. So it's higher than this, that is just 6 points. And the priority is a very high priority because before you can start doing anything with the ERP, chart of account are one of the first things you need to personalize or configure. And once you have moved this from your desktop or from your file to Jira, every work item in Jira, you have what we call this Jira ID. And status, even if you go to Jira, you see that they still have status of their work there. So that's it. And yeah, you have to take a look yourself, this product backlog. But let me take us to a live product backlog. It's going to be better for us to see us live than this. So this is a work. This is a product backlog. This is Dynamics 365. This a work we've done in the past. Dynamics 365, ERP Business Central, Finance Module. So this is how it looks like. We have general ledger. We have general ledger is finance operations within finance and account. And you come there, you have chart of account. And then within chart of account, you have user stories. You have acceptance criteria. And based on issue type, here you can select which issue you want. You can say user story, you can say task, you can say it's bug. You say story point to give it story point. You come here, prioritization. You see it's high, it's medium, it's low. So, and Jira ID and work progress, you come over here. You decide whether it's completed, whether it's 75. That is, you manage your work like this and your work will look very good. So you see that it's very clean product backlog. And equally, I come beside it and added another document called test cases. But it's a topic for another day. So let's not jump into it. So this is user story. Sorry, this is product backlog. Contains everything you need to know about this particular ERP Business Central. So it's a live document we use. It's not just a template. We've used it to deploy this Business Central. So, and if I don't know if this is still open. So this is Jira. So in Jira, this is how Jira looks. So this is how Jira looks. So all this here you see, you can see here is GB3C. This is Jira ID. I just wanted to show you Jira ID. All these things are work items we've done. You see this one, we've completed it, is tasks, and this one is a user story. So you can see we can capture both the user story, all the work, and group them. But these are story for another day so that we won't get confused on what we are doing. So this is backlog. You see backlog here, this product backlog. So if I want to move this product backlog from this Excel document to this place, just like when we were creating in Project Labor. So I can move item from here to here. If I come here, we call it issue. I'll just add a user story or whichever one. But if I want to, I'll come down here when I'm creating it. I'll come down here. I'll decide whether it's a bug, whether it's a user story or a tax. So if I go up, you see. So these are the works here. So you decide which work we are doing, and once you create the work items, you continue to manage it. You continue here. You see it's done, and this is the story points you need to add when you are refining them. But these are different topics we need to treat, but just to give us a very broader overview of this product backlog. You can see backlog, it means to have provision for it. This is Jira, and this is where we create our sprint. And yeah, so that's it. And this sprint here, we've tested all these things, but we didn't click complete. So this sprint here can actually complete this sprint, and that is done. So with that, you can see we don't have any other work within the sprint, and we can equally start another sprint by clicking here. We start another sprint from here, but that is not the topic for tonight. So let's go back to our lesson notes. As a matter of fact, we are running against time. So that is product backlog. We've seen the live product backlog. We've gone to Jira to see where we can move it from there to, but when we get to that point, we cross it, we'll do it. So, but you see it where you use product backlog. Everything about product backlog is there. And the best practice for managing product backlog: collaborate continuously, work with stakeholders and team members to keep the backlog relevant. Prioritize items ruthlessly. Focus on delivering the most valuable features first. Avoid overloading. Limit the backlog to actionable and relevant items. Don't just keep adding anything you see as a backlog. Define clear acceptance criteria. Ensure each backlog item is well defined to avoid misunderstanding, and refine regularly. Like I said, in my teams, we do refinement we have one day we choose to do just one day, like 2 hours, to do some refinement. You must refine your work regularly. And then tools for product backlog. I said Jira already. Jira is either number one for Agile Scrum, providing robust backlog and sprint planning. So Jira is what most organizations use. Like I showed you now, that is Jira. We're going to look at it later. And then we'll have Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps is just like a clone of this because Jira has been in the existence, and later Microsoft developed their own called Azure DevOps. So in my office, we use Azure DevOps, but in some of my works, some of the clients I work for, we use Jira, so we use all these things. And then Trello. So many of us know Trello. If you type Trello, you see the same company at Lanshan that owns Jira owns this Trello as well. It's just for backlog visualization. It's not as robust as Azure DevOps and Jira. So all these things they're all free for use. So by the time we get there, we see you can get an account and be playing around with it. And then we have Monday.com. Monday.com is good because it has a lot of Kanban features, and you can equally use it, to manage workloads such as, but it's not as robust as all these other ones. So that's some of the key tools in the market. And we have we are not going to have any activity, so because you guys already working on a project, so that's why I'm not going to give any assignment on this. So this is another product backlog. This is Dynamics 365 CRM product backlog. We've done this as well. We've delivered projects on this in the past. So this is another, if you want to know more or have like 2 product backlogs experience from Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem. So that is it. All we have to know about product backlog. So like I said, is just a list. In a very simple term, is a list of features, a list of technical requirements for the project. So if you got questions, which I know you have, so you start bringing them, talk about it. Okay, Mr. Dibia.
Good evening, Mr. Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to confirm from the definition of product backlog, is it safe to comfortably conclude that product backlog is the same as project scope?
It's not true. Project scope is area to cover in a project. There's a lot of things to cover in a project. You know, scope, which is even the timeline. When we talk about scope very well, is boundaries. That is scope. Scope is a boundary. Because if we talk about scope, if you talk about even budgets is included in the scope. We want to talk about scope very well. Timeline is included. These are all the scopes. Not only the requirements, that's the scope. You cannot go if it's a 6 months project, the timeline boundary is 6 months. Anything outside that 6 months, you're on your own. If the budget is £6,000, it's a scope. You can't exceed £6,000. They will say specifically you cannot exceed £6,000 for this project. So it's left for you to know how to start from the beginning, start building, creating contingency plans to make sure you do not. But product backlog is the requirement, technical requirement, you know, with acceptance criteria, like I showed you using Google Doc as a product. So it's product backlog is part of the scope, but it's not you can't say it's a scope, it's the scope. You are limiting the scope when you are saying that.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Mr. Alex.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Alex.
Thank you very much for the class. I want to ask question on that product backlog table. Under the column Jira ID. The Jira ID, is it uh, is it something that will generate, will just input any serial number, or the developer that we give that ID?
You saw when I went to the Jira environment. Did you see that?
I see the dashboard. Yes.
Yes. Once you create an item in Jira, Jira will automatically generate an ID for you.
Okay.
So the developer do not give you ID. The ID is just for you to track your work in Jira. So because at times, you can see the Jira, the requirement in Jira is so scanty. I've worked in a project where they will have more than 2,000 product backlog items, and maybe you want to update one item. For you to start scrolling, it's going to be difficult to do that. All you need to do is that if you know the Jira ID, you just search, filter by Jira ID. You just input the ID. Is a very small reference number or code. Once you put it, you bring what you are looking for. That's why it's important to capture them, because it will help you to work faster and track your work. So these are some of the values, benefits of such things.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's just a unique identifier.
Okay.
AW Ezendo.
Good evening, Mr. Charles.
Good evening.
Thanks for the insights on product backlog. I just wanted to ask if at any point in time when you are putting up your product backlog, is there any point where you will have need for any form of diagrammatic representation, in the process of building your product backlog? I just wanted to know, because
it involves no diagram.
okay.
Got nothing to do with any diagram in product backlog. But in the other, you have a lot of diagrams within other activities in business analysis or when you are designing, but not the product backlog. For instance, we have what we call use cases. We have use cases. So use cases is different from user stories. So use cases is something we have to treat next time. So use cases have a diagram, and use cases is not part of the product backlog. So use cases, you use a diagram to show how users interact with the system or with the product. Use case diagram.
Okay.
So that is it. You show the interaction with how a user is interacting with a system. How many different types of users at a system. It can be a system to interacting with a system or a user. So we call it use case diagram. So that is a diagram, but it's not in product backlog.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. So Blessing Ekakiti.
Good evening, Mr. Charles.
Good evening.
All right, sir. I wanted to find out at what stage do we require this document? At what stage in the project are we expected to prepare this particular product backlog document?
As soon as the business case has been approved, you have to wait to know the product. For instance, we want to implement an ERP system. We don't know which ERP. So the business analyst will do a lot of analysis, will do solution evaluation. We've done solution evaluation here.
No, we haven't, sir.
Then you are not following.
I've done that.
Of our legs, have we done Innocent, David, have we done solution evaluation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, using Gartner.
Okay, you can see blessing they've left you behind.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so but to your question, when all these things users they've done solution evaluation, cost benefit analysis, and then during the business case drafting, after business case, is during that business case that the business analyst will start, suggesting, not suggesting, or recommending solutions. You can recommend up to 4 or 5, up to 3 or 4 solutions. All these solutions, like I said, are products, they are softwares. So when you recommend them, the stakeholders, maybe the project sponsor, will choose one of them. So whichever one you choose, the stakeholders choose, is what the team are going to implement. And that is when they start, if they choose, in ERP, we have so many ERP solutions or ERP products. We have ERP from Microsoft called F&O, Finance and Operations, for larger companies. They will have ERP from Microsoft for small and medium enterprise called Business Central. Then we have ERP from Sage. We have ERP from SAP. We have ERP from so many other companies. So you don't know which one they call. So it's when they choose whichever ERP solution they want to implement, that is when you know the solution. So it's technically after the approval of business case. It might sound strange to you because you are very far away from where we are now, because you say you don't know about solution evaluation, and after solution evaluation we did cost benefit analysis, and after cost benefit analysis we did business case before we start even coming to what we are doing now. So in order to make sure that these things we are saying sync very well for you, you go back and start watching them till today's class.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So that's it. And I think we'll call it a night here. So a product backlog, the only way is you learn about the product, you learn about the solution, understand all their features, and there's no other way to understand or to compile them. From here, like you see, I'm sharing product backlog. You see so many companies is there is for you to generate a product backlog. There are so many you can, but the main thing is knowing what your organization wants, so that you don't go and start implementing the wrong features or user stories. So By now, I think all of us now should be comfortable, or every team. So when it's time to start developing it, although I'm going to share my own product backlog to make the work easier for you, but it's good you try to understand these things. Because if you just go lift my work and come and give me, good and fine, I'm not gonna say no, but I know you didn't try to learn it, and understand it very well, and that's it. Okay, thank you guys. And like I said last week, that our classes is going to be shortened by 1 day. So